The biggest debate in football is whether Manchester City are the best Premier League side of all time. Quick answer, no, they aren't the best, but they can be the greatest. Here's why. City can become the greatest Premiership side of all time, and I have to admit it will be down to Guardiola's brilliance more than their ridiculous stacks of money. In short, City have the style of play, the defensive discipline, the young talented players, and of course the money to eclipse all of the former great sides. Here's how. I personally witnessed Manchester City's dominance and Pep Guardiola's brilliance as I sat at the Arsenal end of Wembley. I watched firsthand as Arsenal got destroyed 3-0. Yet, if the score had been 1-0 or 5-0, the performance from Manchester City would have been equally as praiseworthy of their future dominance. This City side didn't just win the game, they won every ball and showed a desire to embarrass Arsenal, an attempt to answer the question of whether the City side is better than the Invincibles. Quickly, let me explain the difference between best and greatest. Best is quantitative and greatest is qualitative. Best can be measured by most points, most goals, most wins, most trophies, or going the season unbeaten. However, qualitative does involve those stats, but it's more about looking at the quality of the football, how visionary the strategy is, and how well the team represents the beautiful game. With this in mind, only a few teams match this criteria. Well, I can't speak of City becoming the greatest Premiership side of all time without talking about the sides that are considered the greatest right now. In short, we have the treble-winning Manchester United side with an attack that was direct as a team and with players that performed their role exceptionally well, such as Andrew Cole and Dwight York's partnership, Paul Scholes' midfield generalship, and flanked by Ryan Giggs' dribbling and David Beckham's pinpoint crosses. They were effective, brilliant, but they still used a fairly conventional formation. They were followed by the free-flowing football of Arsenal's Invincibles, who were devastating in counter-attacking football. Then the 2008 United side, spearheaded by an unstoppable Cristiano Ronaldo through to Mourinho's defensive and efficient but devastating at times Chelsea, and of course the two Manchester City champions. However, this City side is on course to break all of their records and may have become the next Invincibles if it wasn't for Klopp and Liverpool's counter-strategy to Guardiola's revolution. But with that said, let's talk about that revolution.
Well, Torre's been a valuable player over the years. Obviously, that season where he scored 20 goals in 1 year was probably the best season from a midfielder I've ever seen. Now we're more at tiki-taka. I don't think Torre's that kind of player. He's not got the pace. I think the style of play has changed a lot because obviously Torre was, like I say, he was a dominant player, whereas now it's more about the team more than one person on his own. One
of the first statements that Guardiola made was dropping Yaya Toure from his team. Toure was symbolic of the old Manchester City. He was a one-man army. As this Manchester City fan just said, he was a once-in-a-lifetime type player. But he was also not the player he once was. Guardiola knew his new City team had become far too reliant on their big players simply producing magic, kind of like how the NBA teams with LeBron James in their side simply wait for him to do something amazing for them to win. Pep had managed amazing players before in the form of Messi, Iniesta, Ribery, Robin and many others, but this Manchester City side had promise, but it was no Barcelona or Bayern Munich. Pep had to implement a system that wasn't reliant on individual brilliance, but brilliant and consistent team performances. At the same time, Guardiola needed a side capable of one day challenging for titles and the Champions League trophies. So he went out and used some of that Arab money. Whether people want to admit it or not, City have far more money to spend on players than any other great Premiership side. 4 out of 5 the most expensive defenders of all time are in the Manchester City squad. But with that said, even the old United sides were comprised of big signings. United took Cantona from their rivals Leeds, Andrew Cole from their rivals Newcastle, and defensively they spent 30 million on Rio Ferdinand, which made him the most expensive defender ever at the time. So everything City are doing or attempting to do, United did, but City have just taken it to 2018 levels. However, personally I still think Pep's achievements are undermined by the amount of money is spent when compared to, say, Arsenal's Invincibles. But Pep could argue that Arsenal built a team of former World Cup winners who in today's money would have cost similar to what Pep is having to spend to build his version of the Invincibles. But with that said, that's a massive hypothetical and this video is an Arsenal vs Pep. So briefly stated, it's undeniable that Pep has the most expensive squad of all time. But if it was only money that dictated success, Manchester City would be first and Manchester United would be a close second. But in terms of quality of play, there is a far bigger gap between the two sides. So how has Pep than better than Mourinho? Quick answer, better strategy. Pep hasn't spent a lot of money on defenders for the fun of it. Pep's style is actually founded upon strong defence. I feel like Pep has read Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Attack is the secret of defence, defence is the planning of attack. Or even, invincibility lies in defence, the possibility of victory lies in attack. For instance, Pep is equally as defensive-minded as Jose. They are both football artists, but it is the way in which they implement their tactics that differ. Mourinho is like Floyd Mayweather, but Pep is like Vasily Lomachenko. Without turning this into a boxing video, simply stated, Mayweather, like Mourinho, has a defensive style that for many people can actually seem pretty boring. It can seem like they're running away or parking the bus. Whereas Guardiola and Lomachenko entertain whilst defending. It looks like their tactic is attack is the best form of defence, when in fact it is their work rate in defence that actually is a foundation of their attack. Pep gets his players to outrun their opponents, whereas Mourinho gets them to stay or park the bus. Pep has a team of superstars chasing down every ball, closing down every player, and making sure that other team can't get into a rhythm or set up their own attack. With that said, all the great sides must know how to defend. I remember Roy Keane said Manchester United should go the season unbeaten after they won the treble. At the time, people thought it was impossible until Arsenal turned the impossible into the possible. But that season, Arsenal scored 73 goals, had 12 draws and let in 26 goals. They only conceded 4 goals less than Chelsea, whereas Chelsea only had 7 draws in comparison. They also only scored 6 more goals than Chelsea, whereas City have already scored 6 more goals than the Invincibles and have games left to play. With 20 goals conceded, they might end up with a similar defensive display, but the nature of their defense allows their attack to be so unstoppable. However, it is the nature of Pep's attack that makes them formidable and admirable. Manchester City at times can be undefendable simply because their positioning is so fluid. Silva and De Bruyne interchange positions with the knowledge that Fernandinho protects them, and most importantly with Guardiola's orders to work hard off the ball to make sure they press and pressure their opponents and get the ball back. Other teams have 1 or 2 standout players and they hope that they will do something magical to set up, attack or win the game. City used to follow this system. Signings of Robinho, Tevez, Yaya Toure and failed attempts to get Robin van Persie symbolise this old strategy. However, Pep's system isn't reliant on one standout player like one Eden Hazard or Alexis Sanchez, about having 5 Hazards, 5 Sanchez, i.e. a whole team of attacking line that runs, is creative, can assist, has a desire to win and is capable of scoring. This strategy even differs from Pep's time at Barcelona. Guardiola knows he doesn't have a team of Messi's, Iniesta or Xavi caliber players, so instead he's developed a system that enables his current players to excel with free movement that's fast paced, willing to cut in and outside, and with players confident on the ball whether it's dribbling or passing. This multitude of attacking options and styles means that City can beat teams with pressure, intricate passing, long balls as shown in the League Cup final against Arsenal, or simply by individual brilliance, but without other teams' over-reliance upon it. But with that said, of course, City have amazing players, but they aren't just amazing players, they are most importantly young. In Stones, Laporte, Sterling, Mendy, Walker, Jesus, Sane and De Bruyne, they have a young side that can only get better with age, maturity and the guidance under one of the best coaches of all time. Even as an Arsenal fan, I have to admit Manchester City have the money, the philosophy of total defence supporting free-flowing attack and young great players. City have all the ingredients to be the greatest Premiership side of all time. But the question is, what do you think? Will City be that damn good?